When you don't respond to a woman, when you go silent, when you stop texting back, when you don't react the way she expected, you trigger something powerful in her. And it's not confusion, it's curiosity, then frustration, then obsession. But most men don't get this. They think silence equals losing her. They panic, they double text, they explain themselves. And the moment they do, they give up the very thing that was working in their favor: mystery and control. You need to understand something simple but powerful. Your absence speaks louder than your presence when used the right way. Women are wired to crave validation, especially from the men they're not sure they have yet. When you don't respond, you're not being rude. You're shifting the emotional pressure back to her. You're making her think about you. You're making her wonder. And that wondering is exactly what keeps her invested. This isn't about playing games. It's about strategy. The truth is, in modern dating, the man who reacts the least controls the most. It's not about being cold or toxic. It's about being intentional. A man who can delay his response, or sometimes not respond at all, demonstrates that he's not controlled by emotion or desperation. That's power. What goes on in her mind when you don't respond? A lot more than you think. Her ego gets involved. Her imagination starts spinning. She replays conversations. She rechecks her looks. She starts asking herself questions she's never asked before, because suddenly she's not in control. In this video, we're breaking it down. The 7 psychological shifts that happen in her mind when you go silent, and how you, as a man, can use each one to your advantage. 1. She assumes you're talking to other women. The moment you stop responding, the first thought that rushes into her mind isn't that you're busy. It's that you've replaced her. Her ego tells her that she's not the only one in your world anymore. She starts to imagine other women around you. Women who might be prettier, cooler, or more exciting. And as crazy as it sounds, that thought doesn't push her away. It pulls her in. Why? Because now you're not safe. You're not predictable. You're not giving her the comfort of always being available. You're giving her competition. Women hate feeling replaceable. The second she thinks there's a chance you've moved your attention to someone else, it lights a fire inside her. She starts comparing herself. She stalks your social media. She wonders who liked your latest post. She starts reading your silence as a move, an intentional strategy to either punish her or shift the power. And that thought creates pressure. The pressure to act, to reach out, to re-attract you. This is where most men fail. They break silence too early. They get emotional and want to clarify or explain. But you're killing the effect when you do that. The longer you stay silent, the more her mind runs wild with possibilities. And all of those possibilities lead back to one simple question in her head. Is he already replacing me? Even if you're not talking to anyone else, the point isn't whether it's true. The point is that she believes it's possible. And that belief makes her chase harder than any text ever could. She starts competing in her own mind for your attention. She starts imagining ways to win you back. The silence is no longer just about a missed text. It becomes about reclaiming her position in your life. That's how deep this runs. Understand that female psychology is not always logical. It's emotional, reactive, and built on status. And when you don't respond, she feels her status with you slipping. She doesn't like that. She wants to be the one who makes you stop everything, the one who controls the attention. But when you pull back, you shatter that illusion. This tactic works best when you've already shown her a taste of your attention before. If she knows what it's like to have you present, your silence hits harder. It doesn't matter if you just met her or have been seeing her for weeks. When you don't respond, she goes from secure to suspicious. And that shift builds emotional tension. Tension is what keeps her invested. You want to be the man whose silence is loud, whose absence isn't empty, but heavy. Because when a woman assumes another woman is taking her place, it's no longer about feelings. It's about ego. And ego is what makes her act. 2. She starts questioning her value. When you don't respond, her mind doesn't just wander to other women, it starts turning inward. She begins questioning herself. She wonders if she said something wrong, if she came on too strong, if maybe she wasn't interesting enough to keep your attention. This is where it gets psychological. Most women are used to being the prize. They're used to men chasing them, complimenting them, trying to impress them. So, when you don't do that, especially after giving her some attention before, her self-image gets shaken. She might act like she doesn't care. She might post stories pretending she's unbothered, smiling out with friends, or looking sexy on purpose. But none of that is about joy, it's about reaction. It's about getting you to break your silence. Because deep down, your silence makes her feel like she wasn't enough. And that is the one thing her ego cannot tolerate. Here's what happens on the inside. She replays the last thing she said. She examines the tone of her last message. She rereads the conversation, trying to find something she could have done differently. That's the moment she begins to fall into a cycle of overthinking. And overthinking leads to emotional attachment, because now you're not just a guy she liked. You're a puzzle she can't solve. Women are emotional detectives. They can't stand loose ends. They want closure. But when you leave her unread or don't respond at all, you deny her that closure. She doesn't get the satisfaction of knowing why you stopped. And when people don't get answers, they create them. So now, instead of moving on, she's locked in because she needs to know. Not because of you, but because of how she feels about herself. This is where your silence builds pressure. She starts dressing better when she thinks she might run into you. She starts posting more often, not because she's happy, but because she wants to reassert value. She wants to send a message without sending a message. I'm still valuable. I'm still wanted. But the truth is, if she really believed that, she wouldn't need to prove it. This tactic doesn't work on every woman. It works on the ones who are used to attention, the ones who know they're attractive, the ones who assume they're always in control. And when you flip the script, when you don't respond, it makes her feel something she hasn't felt in a long time. Uncertainty. She can't place where she stands with you anymore. That uncertainty makes her question herself. And that's where the emotional connection begins to form. Because now you're not just another guy chasing her. You're the man who made her doubt her own value. And that's the man she wants to win over, not to feel loved, but to feel enough. She doesn't want you back for romance. She wants you back to silence the part of her that feels rejected. 3. She tries to get a reaction. When you don't respond, the next shift is simple but critical. She starts trying to provoke you. At first, she'll keep it subtle. She might double text, send a meme, or say something casual like, "Guess you're busy?" But if you still don't reply, she moves into action. This is where the game flips. She no longer wants a conversation, she wants a reaction. She wants proof that you still care, even if it's through frustration, jealousy, or curiosity. Any reaction is better than silence to her. Women are masters at testing boundaries without looking obvious. If she can't get your attention directly, she'll go indirect. She may post something revealing, flirt with other guys publicly, or suddenly start tagging herself at locations she knows you'll see. She's not just living her life, she's performing. She wants you to feel something. Anger, jealousy, regret, it doesn't matter. If she can get you to react, she wins. And this is where most men collapse. They fall into the trap of emotional control. They see the stories, they hear the rumors, they feel that twist in their gut, and they respond. Not to regain control, but to defend their ego. They try to remind her that they still matter. And by doing that, they hand her the power back. But if you stay silent, if you remain unbothered, she becomes frustrated. And that frustration turns into obsession. Why? Because now she sees you as a man who's not moved by her beauty or her games. That makes you rare. That makes you the kind of man she doesn't quite know how to handle. And people want what they don't understand. It's important to know that her attempts to get a reaction aren't always conscious. Sometimes she genuinely believes she's moved on, or that she's not bothered. But that's the beauty of psychological pressure. It works even when she's unaware of it. Her actions expose her thoughts. If she truly didn't care, she wouldn't post more. She wouldn't text again. She wouldn't mention you to mutual friends, but she does, because silence is heavy, and you've left her to carry it. The most powerful position a man can hold is emotional discipline. Not replying isn't about being stubborn. It's about setting a tone. You are not a puppet. You are not her emotional trampoline. You don't bounce back just because she wants you to. That kind of self-control is rare, and women chase what they can't control. When she tries to get a reaction, that's your cue that the silence is working. It means the emotional investment is happening. It means her thoughts are circling you. It means your absence is louder than anything you could have said. If you want to win this game, you don't respond to manipulation, you don't explain, you don't argue, you stay still, because the man who doesn't react is the man she remembers longest. 4. She replays the entire interaction. By this stage, she's no longer just annoyed or curious, she's consumed. Your silence is now in her head, playing on repeat. And what does she do when she doesn't get a response? She rewinds the entire story from the beginning. She goes back to every moment, every word, every little thing you said or didn't say. She replays the conversation in her mind like it's a movie, trying to find out where things shifted, where she might have lost your interest, where she might have slipped. This is not about logic, it's obsession. And it happens because the silence creates a gap, a vacuum. And women hate emotional uncertainty. So what does she do to fill that silence? She starts investigating. She reads your old messages. She checks the timing of your replies. She remembers your tone. She starts looking for signs, for red flags she might have missed. Even things that seemed meaningless before now feel like clues to her. This is where women start doing what they usually accuse men of, overthinking. But it's not just overthinking, it's emotional attachment through unresolved tension. She's not at peace. She doesn't feel in control. And when a woman doesn't feel in control of her emotional experience, she starts obsessing over how to fix it. And you, by doing nothing, have become the only fix she's looking for. Some men think that ignoring a woman pushes her away. But here's what really happens. If she's emotionally invested, your silence forces her to self-reflect. And that reflection always brings her back to one place. You. Because you're the loose end in her story. You're the unresolved piece. You're the guy who didn't chase, didn't explain, didn't beg. And that quiet power forces her to question everything. She might talk to friends about you, trying to make sense of it. She'll try to get opinions. She might even pretend she doesn't care just to avoid embarrassment. But behind that pride is chaos. And that chaos grows the longer she doesn't hear from you. Because now she's replaying the story, trying to figure out your side. What were you thinking? What were you feeling? Why did you stop responding? Did she turn you off? Did she offend you? Or worse, did she not matter at all? That last question is the most dangerous one for her ego. Because the idea that she didn't even make a dent in your emotions makes her feel small, and that's where things shift. Now she needs to win, not for love, not even for closure, but to prove to herself that she did matter. That's why women often come back after you go silent, not because of who you are, but because of who they need to believe they are. Your silence becomes the unfinished story she desperately needs to close, but she can't do it without your voice. And as long as you don't give her that, she keeps spinning in her own mind, replaying, analyzing, and eventually realizing that she's more attached to you now than she ever planned to be.